Hello friends. This is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruko and Fem Haku built a harem with Yuugao and Rose's legendary Kunoichi? Episode 3. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Naruko had been in Wave for almost a week now. They had received the order to follow Gato to see what his plans were in Wave, as they had pretty much put his entire operation in Hai no Kuni on paper. Sure, most of the minor connections he had were still out there, but the more important ones had all been found. But in order to completely shut him down, they needed to find out what he had planned for Wave. When they had arrived on the island, it became clear that the place was a mess. In fact, Wave wasn't just one island. No, it was several islands that made up the country. If the rest of the islands were in the same shape as the island she was on, then Naruko pitied the people. To reach the island, the trio had to get on board a ship, as the distance was too far to cross it on foot. Finding a boat hadn't been a real problem, but they still were very careful not to get noticed. As soon as they arrived on the island, they noticed the atmosphere. It was depressing and without hope. People were scared of their own shadow and hardly left their homes. The economy was all but non-existent, as the meager amount of food and goods in the small shops showed. But what hurt Naruko's heart the most were the orphans that roamed the villages all around the island. Whatever information they managed to get only taught them that Gato had somehow managed to get control over most fishing boats, taking most of the catch for his own profit and leaving the remains for the fishermen. Naruko had asked Yuugao why these people didn't fight back, but Yuugao explained that to these people Gato seemed invincible thanks to his fortune and the large amount of mercenaries he could hire. They were afraid that if they fought back, Gato would unleash his army against them, killing all of them in the process. The three of them had made a small camp just outside the village and waited for Gato to make his move. So far he had only left his house to make some threats to the villagers to stop making the bridge that they had seen over the water. That bridge was the biggest bridge that Naruko or Yuugao and Anko for that matter had ever seen, and for some reason Gato wanted it gone. "We received a new message," Yuugao said, showing Anko and Naruko the scroll. "What does it say?" Naruko wanted to know. "It says that Team 7 and 8 are on their way to Wave on a mission to protect a certain Tazuna-san," Yuugao said after reading the scroll. "We are to provide backup if necessary, but our own mission takes priority." "That means Kakashi and Kuranaya's Junin-sensei." Anko frowned. "If they need backup, then we're dealing with some very strong opponents." "Oh no, that means Sakura will be here too," Naruko complained loudly. "That's one of those Uchiha fangirls, isn't it?" Anko asked, grinning. "Only the biggest one." Naruko sighed. "Great. I really wished I would never have to see her again." "Come on, Naruko. It can't be that bad. Who knows, maybe she's changed." Yuugao smiled at her student. "I seriously doubt it." Naruko snorted. "Unless she stopped being a fangirl altogether, and that's even more unlikely." Naruko then told some stories to Anko and Yuugao about how Sakura and the fellow fangirls of her class acted around the Uchiha and how annoying the girls were. Naruko didn't need to tell very much before the two women started laughing at such ridiculous behavior. When she was done, Yuugao and Anko understood why Naruko had such a fierce dislike for the girls in her class. They would have been ashamed as well if they were in that class. Girls like that just gave Kunoichi a bad name. Said a pink-haired girl was sitting in a cozy little home just a few miles away. They had just arrived in the village, and Tazuna had led them to his home so Kakashi-sensei could recover from his fight with Zabuza of the Hidden Mist. She had never been so afraid in her entire life as when the missing nin had attacked them earlier that day. Things had started out great. They received a C-rank mission that would take about 2 weeks outside Konoha. Sakura was very happy about that, as that meant that she had Sasuke all to herself for 2 whole weeks. No Ino or other rivals she had to look out for. Just her and Sasuke. That Hinata was with her as well didn't bother her at all, since the shy Hyuga had never been interested in Sasuke before, so she doubted Hinata was a rival. Alas, things had quickly gone south. On the second day of the trip they were attacked by two shinobi called the Oni Kyodai, and if it wasn't for Kakashi-sensei's quick reaction she would have been killed when one of them aimed for Tazuna. Luckily Kakashi had seen the attack and interfered before any harm could be done. Of course this showed the Junin sensei that this mission was not what they thought it would be, and from that moment they had to be on guard for anything. That had meant 3 more days of non-stop stress and worries for her. The real reason why she was so afraid came when they had just set foot on land and Zabuza of the Hidden Mist had attacked them. Sakura just knew that she would have nightmares for the next few days. The fight had been terrifying, and while the genin hadn't had to fight, seeing Kurenai-sensei and Kakashi-sensei fight for their lives had been enough to scare her. The amount of killing intent the man released upon them was enormous, and she wasn't the only one who almost fainted. The other genin too had been so scared that they were shaking and trembling. She had never been more relieved when Hunter Nin killed Zabuza and took him away. Upstairs Kakashi was resting after using his Sharingan so much during the fight. While he hadn't fainted thanks to Kurenai's help in battle, he still used most of his chakra to fight the man. Zabuza truly was a worthy opponent, he thought. Still something was bothering him and he couldn't put his finger on it. He recalled the battle in his mind when suddenly he understood what happened. Kurenai, we're in trouble. Kakashi said urgently. Zabuza is still alive, isn't he? Kurenai said, thinking the same thing. That Hunter Nin was his accomplice. Yes, I believe so. Kakashi agreed. That means he'll be back after he gets healed. That should give us about 2 weeks. Kurenai said, judging by the number of injuries they had managed to inflict. What's the plan? I think it would be wise to train our students during those 2 weeks. Kakashi said, thinking. And maybe call Yuugao and her team just in case. How will we contact her? Kurenai asked. They had no idea where she was and they didn't want to compromise her mission by being too obvious about it. I'll take care of that. Kakashi said tiredly. This will probably cost me my remaining chakra, so you'll have to explain it to her in detail. Kakashi then used the Kuchio's no Jutsu to summon a small dog and gave it the order to find Yuugao and guide her here unknown to the genin and everyone else. The small pug named Pakun nodded and sped away looking for Yuugao. In their camp the trio was discussing training and how to proceed if Team 7 and 8 requested backup. Naruko didn't like it, but there was no way she was going to abandon 2 fellow teams even if Sakura was part of one. The others she didn't really have any problems with, so she didn't mind them. The 3 had worked out a schedule that would put Yuugao and Anko on following duty while Naruko focused on training and scouting the village. Naruko protested, saying that she too wanted to help in the mission, but Yuugao put her foot down, saying that Gato most likely had missing Nin with him since he seemed to have some plans for Wave. They couldn't risk Naruko getting detected by them and blowing their cover. Someone's coming, Anko suddenly said as she heard rustling in the bushes. They got ready to fight, but only a small dog emerged from the bushes. Pakun, Yuugao asked as she recognized the small summon. Yo, Kakashi and Kurenai need you. Pakun said, making Naruko groan loudly and muttering about incompetent fangirls. They fought a missing Nin called Zabuza of the Hidden Mist. Ouch, that's a tough one. Anko whistled. I'll tell you later, she said to Naruko, who wanted to know who this Zabuza guy was. Alright, I guess you want me to come with you, Yuugao said, and Pakun simply nodded. Alright, lead the way. When Yuugao returned an hour later, she explained that they would continue observing Gato and his men but wouldn't interfere with the battle unless it was absolutely necessary. She told them the same thing Kurenai told her about how they faced Zabuza and how a fake hunter nin had taken him away. She also explained that according to Kurenai's estimations it would take about 2 weeks before Zabuza would be able to fight again. Until Kakashi had recovered, either Yugo or Enko would watch over the genin of Team 7 and 8 for afar. So in case they got attacked, Kurenai wasn't alone to fight off missing nin. So other than that, we continue just as planned? Naruko asked. Yes, Team 7 and 8 doesn't know we're here. Yugo said. Kakashi and Kurenai would like to use this situation as a training opportunity. Since we'll follow the battle closely, they're pretty assured that their students are saved. That's so, Kakashi. Enko snorted. Use a life-threatening situation to teach your students something. They'll be training in the forest north from here, so avoid that part. Yugo said to them. Also be careful when you're in the village not to get noticed. The next morning, Naruko was wandering through the forest to find a suitable training place where she could practice. After walking a bit, she came out on a beautiful clearing filled with flowers and herbs, and she decided that this would be the place. She entered the clearing only to see a person sitting there pulling out herbs. Naruko was a bit disappointed that someone had already claimed this place, but guessed that once the girl was done she would have the place all to herself. She made up her mind and entered the clearing, approaching the girl. Hi, what are you doing? Naruko asked softly, not to startle the girl. Oh hello, I'm just collecting some herbs to make some medicine. The girl smiled. Do you need help? Naruko said, sitting down. Sure. The girl said, not wanting to be rude. I'm Haku. Naruko. Nice to meet you. Naruko said to Haku and took in her appearance. The girl had long shiny black hair and beautiful kind eyes. She wore something around her neck and a pink kimono which showed just how delicate she was. Naruko was mesmerized by this girl, and she thought that this was without a doubt the most beautiful girl she had ever seen. Nice to meet you too. Haku smiled back and showed her what herbs she was looking for. This place is so peaceful. Naruko sighed softly. It was something that Konoha didn't have, as it always had people on the move, and she thought it was a pity. I only found it yesterday, but I like it here. Haku agreed. It's nice and it relaxes me. Haku took a moment to close her eyes and just enjoy the sense and the feeling of the grass. She then looked at Naruko, who was trying to find the correct herb with a frown of concentration on her face. It surprised Haku that this girl was willing to talk to her and help her. She had never had any friends before in her village, and when she joined up with Zabuza she didn't have any time to make some friends. Maybe she could become friends with this girl, even if it only was for a few days. The two of them talked a bit longer and greatly enjoyed talking to a girl of somewhat the same age. Neither of them gave out information that could inform the other of their true identity, but that didn't stop them from becoming friends very fast. Sadly, after an hour, Haku excused herself, saying that she still had work to do at home. Will I see you again? Naruko asked, a bit sad. I'll need new herbs tomorrow, so maybe we'll see each other again tomorrow morning. Haku smiled at her new friend. Sure thing, I'll be here. Naruko nodded. See you tomorrow. Bye. Haku waved and vanished into the forest. Once Naruko was sure she was alone, she quickly changed into more durable clothes and started her training. She had been practicing very hard to master the technique her godfather had shown her, and so far she was doing great. When she used the jutsu, her hair became hard as diamond and wrapped around her, protecting her from any harm. Also, the fact that her hair formed spikes capable of hurting the opponent's limbs was amazing. After finishing that part, she moved over to her taijutsu and the katas she still had to master. It was a bit weird to practice without Yugo at her side, but she knew it was necessary to practice. The last portion of her training was the Rasengan. She had already been able to make a perfectly shaped one, but it took her way too much time and concentration. It just wasn't usable in a fight this way, and thus she needed to improve. Her goal was to be able to do it in less than 3 seconds. Then and only then would she show Yuugao-sensei that she was capable of performing the Rasengan. When she returned to the camp, she saw Anko and Yuugao sitting there talking and laughing while preparing dinner. Naruko greeted them with a smile and asked what they were talking about. Anko told her how she had watched the training that Team 7 and 8 had done during the day. I swear, just a few minutes of sparring and the girl was breathing like crazy. Anko said, shaking her head. And don't get me started on the Uchiha. What's wrong with him? Yuugao asked. You mean, what isn't wrong with him? Anko snorted. The guy is a ticking time bomb. He's arrogant, has an ego unlike anything I've ever seen before, and while talented, he's a real jerk towards his teammates. He insults them and ridicules them more often than not and ignores most of the advice Kurenai gave him. Yep, that's Sasuke all right. Naruko nodded. He was like that in the academy as well. Always looking down at others, believing they weren't worth his time. Teammate on the other hand is a well-oiled machine. Anko continued. They work well together and seem very supportive of each other. Kurenai's lucky to have such a team. Though I'm a bit disappointed at their progress, I guess they held back a bit. So did anything happen with Gato? Naruko asked her sensei. Nothing. I don't get it. We know he has something big planned for this place, but all he does is stay inside and do nothing. Yuugao said, frustrated. Well, we already know that Zabuza and his accomplice were the missing nin he hired. Anko said, shrugging. All we have to do is wait until he betrays them. This is bound to happen, either before or after they fight Kakashi and Kurenai again. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Naruko said before taking 3 plates and filling them with dinner. For the next week and a half, Naruko met up with Haku in the morning to help her collect herbs in the forest. Over those days they had really started to know each other, even though neither of them knew that they were both Kunoichi. They were very fast starting to consider each other as first and best friends. When they wandered around the forest they laughed and joked around, talking just about everything. Naruko told her that she was here with her Nei-chans traveling for a few weeks, while Haku pretended to be from a local village not too far from the forest. Each day made it harder and harder for both as they realized that they would have to say goodbye eventually, and neither really wanted that. Well, I need to go. Haku said as she needed to get back. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow, right? Naruko nodded. Sure thing, Naruko-chan. Haku smiled at her friend. Bye, Haku-chan. Naruko waved before she started her training for the day. Haku jumped through the trees and headed to the tree house where she and Zabuza lived. The place wasn't much, but it offered them the chance to sleep in a decent bed, and at least they were covered from nature. It was also a very good hiding place, as not many people ventured this far into the dark forest. While she was running and hopping through the trees, she began thinking about her new friend and how fast she had become attached to the girl. For the first time in her life she felt truly accepted. Sure, Zabuza took care of her, but she was only a tool to him, as he had told her so many times. She was useful to him thanks to her Kekkei Genkai and her devotion to him. Now, however, she started to wish that she could be like Naruko. To be free and not having to worry about Hunter Nin appearing all of the sudden aiming to end your life. No, if it wasn't for Zabuza-sama she would have long left by now. Yet, she couldn't do this to her savior. If Zabuza-sama hadn't saved her all those years ago, she would have long died or ended up as a slave. She definitely owed Zabuza-sama her life, and she wasn't about to ignore that no matter how much she wanted. When she arrived, she quickly changed into her usual clothes except the mask and prepared the medicine for her master and headed to his room where he was resting. The Konoha shinobi had done a number on him, but he was healing nicely. If she was to guess a few more days and he would be back to his top game. She entered his room and noticed that he was awake and looking at the ceiling. She went over and handed him the cup with the medicine, helping him sit up and drink it. How are you feeling, Zabuza-sama? She inquired. Pretty good. A few more days and I'll be healed completely. Zabuza grunted at her. Well, be sure to rest until then. Haku smiled. What's the matter with you? Zabuza asked suddenly. You seem very happy for some reason. Me. Oh, nothing happened. Haku said quickly. I'm just happy that you're getting better. Zabuza said, narrowing his eyes at her before he let it go and closed his eyes. The rest of the day went pretty fast for Haku as she cleaned up a bit, prepared food and kept guard. Ever since Gato and his 2 samurai had paid them a visit 2 days after Zabuza's defeat, she had been on alert. Of course those 2 samurai had been nothing compared to her, but it was the fact that he would attack them in the first place. She had no doubt that Gato would betray them if they lost the next fight as well. As evening approached, Haku felt more and more nervous, and she just had a gut feeling that something bad was going to happen. She alerted Zabuza of this and he told her to be ready to fight if something happened. Her feeling of dread came true when she saw Gato and his 2 men approaching the treehouse. Luckily she didn't feel any other presence than those 3, but she still didn't feel completely reassured. Gato, what do you want? Zabuza growled at the small man. I'm just here to check up on you, Gato said with a nasty smile on his face. I've decided that we need to attack the bridge at the end of next week. By then it will be almost finished. It will give them a feel of success and hope. When we destroy that bridge, we'll crush the spirit of each and every one of those damn villagers. Fine. I'm almost recovered, so we can do it any time you want. Zabuza nodded. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think you were going to be there? Gato laughed loudly. What's that supposed to mean? Zabuza said, getting up and motioning to Haku to be on guard. It means that I'm terminating our contract, Gato said, sneering at him. I can't afford another screw-up, so I decided to call in a few friends. He tapped his cane and suddenly Haku and Zabuza were surrounded by 3 hunter nin of the hidden mist. You bastard! Zabuza shouted. The fight was over before it really started. While Zabuza had recovered greatly, he still wasn't healed, and the hunter nin used this to their advantage. 2 of them joined up together to fight him while the last one fought with Haku. Zabuza wasn't about to let some punk betray him without at least trying to get even. He fought like a man possessed and had managed to get a hold of his sword, which evened the odds a bit. With fierce determination he engaged the 2 hunter nins in combat. Haku was also having trouble. The man she was facing was obviously stronger than her, and she had to do her best not to get killed in the first few minutes of the battle. She couldn't use her Kekkei Genkai due to the lack of space inside the room. While she had several techniques that she could use, all of them needed space, and so she was facing the man with only a few Senbon needles. On top of that, the man used a ninjutsu which he used to perfection. She had already been cut on the arm, but luckily it was only a superficial wound. Zabuza was having a hard time fighting 2 hunter nins at the same time. Just like Haku, he lacked the necessary room to use much of his kenjutsu as he couldn't swing his sword that well. The hunter nin, on the other hand, had no such restriction. When one attacked, the other blocked his attack, leaving him open for the other. He bit a cry of pain as he got stabbed in the arm by one of them, forcing him to jump back. He heard Haku hit the wall as the hunter nin kicked her in the ribs hard enough to make her cough up blood. It was there and then Zabuza made the decision. He knew he wouldn't leave this place alive, but he wasn't about to let Haku pay for his mistakes. For years she had followed him, obeyed him, and sacrificed everything for him just because he had taken her with him when he fled Kiri. He always told her she was his tool, A weapon to reach his goals, but now all he wanted was for her to live and be happy. The last few days he had noticed a change in Haku. She smiled a lot more and she seemed very happy for some reason she didn't want to tell. He threw his sword at his opponents and dashed over to Haku, successfully kicking the hunter nin that was approaching her in the face. Haku, this is the end for me. Zabuza said to her. Get out of here. I'll deal with these guys. ZZ Zabuza-sama. Haku said, shocked. I won't abandon you. This is an order. Zabuza yelled. Leave now and be happy. He then grabbed her by her clothes and threw her out the window, knowing that she would survive the fall. Haku was falling while crying loudly until she hit the ground. She felt her leg break from the impact and she screamed out in pain and misery. She had failed her master and now she was alone. She still heard the sounds of the battle and knew she had to get away. She dragged herself into the forest and hoped that the hunter nin wouldn't chase after her. She headed for the only place she could think of. Naruko woke up that morning and she started making breakfast for her nei-chans. Yuugao and Anko had gotten very irritated at the way things were going. Yuugao was frustrated that Gato just stayed in his home doing nothing all day long, and Anko was getting bored of watching over Team 7 and 8 all the time. Naruko figured that she could do something nice and prepare breakfast for them. Since it was very early in the morning, they were still sleeping, but she left to meet up with Haku. She walked to their meeting grounds hoping that Haku would be there so that they could spend a bit more time together. When she reached the clearing, she noticed something lying in the grass. She approached it and suddenly she had a very bad feeling about this. She hurried over and recognized the silky black hair of her best friend. She turned the body over and saw the bloodied face of Haku. Haku-chan. Yuugao and Anko were eating the breakfast Naruko had prepared for them earlier. It was still early and they had a bit of time before they would have to leave to watch over their targets. They were sick and tired of doing so, but they didn't have a choice. Gato needed to be watched so that they would know what he was planning, and Team 7 and 8 needed to be protected until Kakashi had recovered. Fortunately, he was already moving around on crutches, so hopefully that part would soon be over. They were about to get ready to leave when Naruko busted out of the bushes carrying someone on her back. Nei-chan, help me. Naruko yelled. Naruko, what's going on? Who's that? Yuugao asked, shocked. She's my friend. Please help me. She's hurt badly. Naruko pleaded. Anko sprung into action, telling Naruko to bring the girl over. Naruko nodded and carried her friend to Anko, who immediately started to remove the bloodied clothes so she could take a look at the girl's injuries. Broken leg, wound on the left forearm, probably concussion as well. Anko said quickly. A broken rib as well. Is she going to be okay? Naruko panicked. Naruko, she's going to be fine. We'll take care of her. Yuugao reassured her, thought she was very wary of this Haku person. You need to tell us how you know this girl. Why didn't we hear about this until now? I'm sorry, don't be mad please. Naruko cried. We're not mad, Naruko-chan. Anko hugged her. We just want to know what's going on. I met her almost 2 weeks ago. Naruko explained. She was plucking herbs in the clearing where I trained and we started talking and she was really nice. I helped her a bit and when she left I started training. The next day she was back and each day after that as well. We became friends, but I never told her that I was from Konoha or anything, I swear. Naruko said while looking at Haku worriedly. From what Kakashi told me, she fits the description of that fake hunter nin that saved Zabuza. Yuugao said to Naruko. Did you know she was a kunoichi? No, I swear. Naruko said. She never did anything to make me think she's a kunoichi. I believed she was just a girl from a nearby village. Well, she's going to be fine. Anko said when she finished tending to Haku. The worst injury is her leg, but it should heal nicely. We'll have to use medical jutsu several times over the next few days to help it heal, but that shouldn't be a problem. Thanks Anko Nichan. Naruko hugged her and went to sit next to her friend. She is obviously a kunoichi. Anko said to her lover. She has several scars on her body that civilians just don't have. What are we going to do now? I don't know, but we can't leave her like this. Yuugao said. That's not what I meant. Anko said, pointing to Naruko. Look at her. You can tell how attached she's become to this girl. If we do something to hurt her, Naruko will never forgive us. We'll have to wait until we can ask Haku what happened. Yuugao sighed. She really didn't want to hurt Naruko, but chances were that they might not have a choice. If Haku was the hunter Nin Kakashi talked about, it would only get worse. It's pretty clear what happened. Anko snorted. Gato betrayed them just like he did so many times before. The rest of the day Naruko didn't move from beside Haku. Training had been cancelled as someone needed to be there when Haku woke up. Yuugao left to watch over Gato and promised that everything would be okay and that she wasn't mad at Naruko. Anko went to watch over the genin of Team 7 and 8 but returned soon after when she had seen Kakashi helping the kids with their training, showing he had recovered. Anko looked at her little adopted sister and smiled. It was cute to see Naruko this worried about someone, and she was happy that she had finally made a real friend. While they didn't discuss this with Naruko, they had been a bit worried about her not having any friends of her own age back in Konoha. Seeing Naruko talk about her friend like that had reassured them both that Naruko wasn't completely shutting others out of her life. Haku woke up feeling sore and very thirsty. She tried to recognize where she was but couldn't find anything. She did find, however, that her wounds were bandaged and her leg was splinted. Suddenly someone bowed over her and raised her head so she could drink some water. Haku didn't know this person, so she struggled against it. Shish, it's okay. We're Naruko's friends. Anko whispered. You have nothing to fear from us. And Naruko-chan. Haku managed to say after she took a sip of water. Yes, she found you this morning. Yuugao said after Anko had called her over. What happened? Gato, betrayed. Zabuza-sama, ordered, run. Haku said before she burst into tears. Gato betrayed you and Zabuza ordered you to run. Anko asked softly and Haku nodded with tears streaming down her cheeks. So you are a kunoichi. Yuugao said to Haku, who nodded. Did you tell Naruko about this? No, did not tell her. Haku said softly. Did you know Naruko is a kunoichi? Yuugao further asked. Haku's eyes widened and she immediately shook her head. Didn't. No, she said. Okay, rest now. Anko told Haku. We'll talk later, okay? Haku didn't need to be told twice and she drifted off. Just like we thought. Yuugao said to her lover. What are we going to do? Like I said, Naruko will never forgive us if we hurt her friend. Anko answered. We'll need to be careful about this. I doubt the girl is a threat or anything. She doesn't seem the type. When did this stupid mission get so complicated? Yuugao complained. I swear, I never had these kinds of problems in Anbu. Oh come on, you love every second of being Naruko's Junin sensei. Anko said laughing. True, Yuugao said before moving over to Naruko and tucked her in. She's the second best thing that happened to me. And what's the first best thing that happened to you? Anko said, grabbing Yuugao in a hug. I thought that was pretty obvious. Yuugao smiled before kissing Anko, who happily responded. The next morning Naruko woke up early, mad at herself for falling asleep when Haku needed her. She looked over at the girl and saw that she was sleeping peacefully. She couldn't help but stare at Haku's face and she was worried sick even though Anko had told her that she would be fine. She looked at the bandages on Haku's forearm and noticed that they needed to be changed. Grabbing the scroll where they sealed medical supplies and unsealed a roll of bandages and started working. "Good morning, Naru-chan," Yuugao said from behind her. "Ah, good morning, Yuugao Ni-chan." Naruko smiled softly. "I'm sorry for falling asleep last night." "Don't worry about it, Naru-chan," Yuugao said, sitting next to her. "Haku woke up a bit last night and managed to tell us about what happened. Gato betrayed them, didn't he?" Naruko said with venom in her voice. "Yes, apparently he called in Hunter Nin and Zabuza ordered her to run." Yuugao explained. "She honestly didn't know you were a kunoichi. We could tell from the look on her face." "What's going to happen to her?" Naruko asked, afraid of the answer. "I don't know, Naru-chan." Yuugao sighed. "I know she's your friend, but she's a missing nin from Kiri. We can't just take her with us. I'm not leaving her here," Naruko said strongly. "Haku-chan is my first and best friend, and I'll be damned if I abandon her like this." "Naru-chan," a weak voice suddenly said. "Haku-chan, how are you feeling?" Naruko said softly. "Okay, bit sore. I'm sorry." Haku managed to say. "It's okay. Rest now. We'll have plenty of time to talk later." Naruko smiled at Haku, who nodded and closed her eyes again. Late in the afternoon, Haku woke up once more feeling a lot better. She was able to sit up for a bit, though she needed help to get up. She told Naruko and Yuugao, who had asked Anko to watch over Gato today, what had happened after she had left Naruko in the clearing. She explained how she got home and took care of Zabuza and how Gato arrived and betrayed them. With tears running down her cheeks, she told them how Zabuza ordered her to run and how he threw her out the window to the forest below. "I abandoned Zabuza-sama," Haku cried softly. "What am I going to do now? I'm all alone again." "No, you're not," Naruko said, smiling. "You've got me. We're friends and I'm not going to leave you." "But," Haku tried to say, but Naruko interrupted her. "No, you're coming with me and that's final," Naruko said, nodding her head. "Naruko, you can't promise that," Yuugao said angrily. "We can't just bring in missing nin from other villages. That's very much frowned upon and could start some serious trouble." "I'm not a missing nin," Haku said, surprising both Konoha Kunoichi. "You're not," they both said simultaneously. "I was never a shinobi. Zabuza-sama found me when I was 6 years old and took me away from Kiri." Haku nodded. "He taught me everything I know, but I was never an official kunoichi of Kiri. The Hunter Nin came after Zabuza-sama, but not me. See, Haku-chan can come with us," Naruko said, glaring at Yuugao. She wasn't really mad at her sister. She too knew the rules, but she desperately wanted to keep her friendship with Haku. "That doesn't mean Hokage-sama will allow her to become a kunoichi for Konoha." Yuugao sighed. "Things don't work like Naru-chan. Don't worry about Ji-chan." Naruko smiled. "I'll use my secret jutsu. He can't refuse anything when I use it." "Secret jutsu?" Yuugao blinked. "And what jutsu might that be?" If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret anymore, now would it?" Naruko said, smiling. "Arg, you can be so stubborn when you want." Yuugao groaned. Naruko winked at Haku, who managed a small smile back at the blonde. "Naruko, I'll need to go tell Kakashi what happened." "Haku, you're sure that Gato said he would attack at the end of next week?" Haku nodded. "Good. I'll be back shortly. Stay here and be good." Naruko huffed at the last comment and turned to Haku, who was laying down resting some more. Naruko hated seeing her friend this hurt and vulnerable, so she went to sit next to her, showing her friend that she was there for her. Haku didn't speak, but Naruko could tell how thankful she was when she looked at her. For a long time they just sat there thinking and resting. neither one speaking, waiting for the other to speak first. Thank you, Naruko-chan, Haku said suddenly. What for? Naruko asked softly. For taking care of me and for wanting me to come with you. Haku answered. Are you kidding? You're my best friend, so there's no way I could do otherwise. Naruko said. Besides, you would do the same for me. How do you know that? Haku cried. I abandoned Zabuza-sama. I don't deserve your friendship. Don't you ever say that, Haku. Naruko said angrily. You didn't abandon Zabuza. He ordered you to run and live. He loved you so much that he wanted you to live and be happy. He knew he was going to die there and he didn't want you to suffer because of him. But, Haku tried to say. I know it hurts, Haku-chan, and it will for a long time. Naruko softly said. But you should honor his last order and request. Live and be happy. That way his death was not in vain. You didn't abandon him. You made sure his death had a meaning. Thank you, Naru-chan. Haku said after thinking a bit. You're very welcome. Naruko smiled. Oh, and you definitely deserve my friendship. Haku nodded and they fell into silence once more. Not soon after, Yuugao returned from informing Kakashi and Kurenai, who were very glad to have a heads up about the attack. Yuugao also asked a few questions about the fight they had with Zabuza and had found out that Haku hadn't fought them, only took Zabuza away under her guise as a hunter nin. Yuugao relaxed a bit at that, as things would have been worse if Haku had fought or injured someone from Konoha. Now that she knew that wasn't the case, she understood that Haku did have a good chance of being accepted into Konoha, but it would probably take a lot of begging and arguing with the Sandaime. When she arrived back at the camp, she noticed that Haku was sleeping and Naruko was practicing her kata but still checking Haku once in a while. Yuugao called her over and Naruko quickly joined her. Yuugao ni-chan, Naruko said, looking at the ground. Yes, Yuugao said, surprised. She had never seen Naruko like this before. I'm sorry, Naruko said with a sniffle before hugging her big sister. I don't want you to be mad at me, but Haku is my friend. Oh, Naru-chan, I'm not mad at you. Yuugao smiled while hugging the girl. I just don't want to see you hurt if Sandaime-sama doesn't allow Haku to stay in Konoha. Will you help me try to convince him? Naruko asked. Of course I will. Yuugao sighed. She really wanted to get to know Haku a bit more before she answered, but Naruko needed to know that she still supported her and cared for her. I'll do my very best, okay. Naruko nodded, wiping a tear from her eye, and smiled at Yuugao, who told her that she was going to teach her a new jutsu. She had thought it over, and while she was normally forbidden to teach this jutsu, she figured that with the current mission she would be forgiven. Kurenai, Kakashi and she had discussed the attack, and Yuugao was sure that the bastard would attack with overwhelming numbers. Kakashi agreed and asked Yuugao to help them in the final fight in case the 2 Junin and 6 Genin wouldn't be able to defeat a whole army of thugs and mercenaries on their own without taking any losses. Yuugao had told him that she would report to the Hokage and ask for orders, but that they would be there in any case to help if necessary. Okay, Naru-chan, the jutsu that I'm going to teach you is a forbidden jutsu. Yuugao said seriously. Normally, it's not allowed to teach this jutsu to anyone, but I fear that we might need it next week. Let me show you. Yuugao did a few hand seals and called out, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and a perfect replica of Yuugao appeared next to her. This jutsu, unlike any other Bunshin jutsu, is a real copy of you made out of chakra. Unlike the normal Bunshin no Jutsu, it's corporal and can do anything the original can. To show what she meant, the clone went over to Naruko and touched her shoulder, showing it had a real body. Wow, that's amazing, Naruko said, surprised. But why is it forbidden? It's forbidden because the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu has a very large chakra demand to perform. Yuugao said, dispelling the clone. If I make one clone, then it cuts my chakra in half. If I make 2 clones, then they receive 1/3 of my chakra each, and so on. This is very dangerous because if you make too many, you won't have any chakra left. Naruko nodded in understanding. So be careful when you use that jutsu. Yuugao warned her. Also, the cage bunshin isn't a very durable bunshin. It only needs to get one hit and it dispels. But you use it in battle, right? Naruko said, thinking about Yuugao's fighting style. Yes, that's right. I use it to deceive my opponent and also because the clone can do damage. Yuugao nodded. Okay, here are the seals. Naruko quickly learned the seal sequence and started practicing her new jutsu. She didn't have much success on the first tries, and the clones either popped as soon as they were formed or didn't form at all. Finally, after about an hour, she started making progress, and things went very fast from there. Taking a deep breath, Naruko ran through the hand seals and focused her chakra into creating clones. The area around Naruko was soon covered in smoke, and Yuugao panicked immediately. That much smoke meant that Naruko had made a larger number of clones. When the smoke cleared, she gasped at the amount of Narukos that stood in the clearing. There had to be at least a few dozen clones. Naruko, dispel them quickly. Yuugao yelled out in panic. Naruko, surprised at the number of clones, did as she was told. Yuugao hurried over to check if her student was okay. Naruko, how do you feel? Do you need to sit down? Are you okay? I feel fine, Yuugao-sensei. Naruko assured her. You don't feel anything after making so many clones? Yuugao asked in shock. Not even a bit tired or drained? Nope, I'm okay, Naruko admitted. Not tired at all. That's impossible, Yuugao stammered. So many clones and you don't feel it at all? If I were to make that many, I wouldn't last 3 seconds before falling unconscious. Want me to try again? Naruko asked, and Yuugao nodded but told her not to make that many clones just to be sure. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruko did the jutsu once more, and once again about 20 clones popped into existence. Is this better? I tried to make less of them. How do you feel now? Yuugao checked once more. Perfect. Not tired or strained at all, Naruko said, smiling. I could probably make more without a problem. Unbelievable, Yuugao said, amazed. I've never heard of anyone making that many clones and not being tired or passing out. Okay, dispel them and try to make only 1 or 2. Naruko nodded, dispelling the clones, and concentrated on making only a few clones instead of making a whole army. It took her a few tries, but in the end she managed to tweak her chakra enough to make just 1 clone. Yuugao nodded and asked Naruko how long she thought she could let it live. Naruko shrugged, not really knowing, and ordered the clone to sit and wait until it runs out of chakra or until she became too tired to maintain the jutsu. When Anko returned a few hours later and saw 2 Narukos sitting there, and she almost thought she was the victim of a prank, but when Yuugao explained that she had taught the Kage Bunshin to Naruko and that this clone had been there for the past 3 hours, Anko's jaw dropped. Like Yuugao, she had never heard of such a thing, and she was visibly impressed with her little sister. Yuugao informed Anko that she had talked to Kakashi and Kurenai that afternoon about Gato's attack. Anko nodded when Yuugao explained that they would most likely help them out against Gato's army. Has anything happened at Gato's? Yuugao asked. No sign of any army of mercenaries or the hunter nin that attacked Haku last night, Anko told them. Yeah, Haku told us that she was never an official kunoichi to begin with, so they wouldn't be interested in her anyway. Yuugao nodded, feeling relieved that they wouldn't have to deal with the hunter nin. I take it Naruko convinced you to take her with us. Anko smiled at Yuugao while Naruko was checking on Haku. How could I refuse? Haku is the first friend that she's made. Yuugao sighed softly. She would be devastated if she had to leave Haku here. The two women looked over at Naruko, who was sitting next to Haku with concern still showing on her face, even though she now knew that Haku would be fine. The two of them could clearly see that Naruko already considered Haku as a member of their group. They realized that if Haku got accepted into Konoha's shinobi force, that Naruko would want her to join under Yuugao's tutelage as well. While the two women were thinking about the consequences, Naruko had fallen asleep next to her friend. Yuugao and Anko giggled at the two girls lying next to each other, and they moved over to put a blanket over them. Several hours later, Haku woke up and saw Naruko sleeping peacefully next to her, and she smiled at the blonde. She was truly grateful to have made such a loyal and kind friend in the girl. When they had first met, Haku knew that this girl was special, and over the days she had come to realize that Naruko was everything she wanted in a friend. They could talk very well with each other. They had the same kind of dreams, and now she knew that they were both Kunoichi. Haku smiled as Naruko shifted closer and snuggled into her blanket. "She's been watching over you ever since she found you." A voice came from Haku's other side. She turned around and saw Anko sitting there smiling at her. "Really?" Haku said shyly. "Of course, you're her first friend and it's obvious she cares very much for you," Anko said, nodding. "Poor girl doesn't really have any friends at home. She's an orphan and life didn't always treat her right, but she's one of the strongest girls I know." "How come someone as great as Naruko doesn't have any friends?" Haku wanted to know. "Well, it's not really my story to tell, so if you really want to know you should ask her, but one reason is that the girls in her class were more interested in a boy than becoming friends with her," Anko said to Haku. "All of them were interested in one boy?" Haku asked, wondering what kind of boy would be able to attract that many girls. "Doesn't help that said boy is the last member of a famous clan and called a genius," Anko shrugged. "And when Naruko showed no interest whatsoever in him, the other girls saw her as a weirdo and never bothered to get to know her." "You saw him though. He was with the team Zabuza fought. The one with the blue shirt and white pants." "I see." Haku said he understood when he remembered seeing the boy. She knew that children could be very cruel without even knowing that they were doing it. "How's the leg?" Anko said, changing the subject. "It still hurts when I move it, but I think I'll be able to move around by the end of next week," Haku answered. "Good. Medical jutsu helped improve the healing rate, but it was still a nasty fracture," Anko said before she used the jutsu on Haku's leg once more. They had been doing that every few hours to help the healing along. It wouldn't be healed completely by the end of the week, but she would at least be able to move around with crutches without having too much pain. "Thank you for helping me," Haku said when Anko finished. "You don't have to do this, so why do you help me?" "It's simple. Naru-chan is our little sister, and when Yuugao and I took her in, we promised each other that we would do anything within our power to make her happy." Anko smiled while looking at Naruko. "This is the first time in all those months that we've seen her go against us, and that means she truly thinks of you as a member of her family, so that leaves us no choice. But I warn you, if you do anything to make her cry, I won't hesitate to protect her." "I know. I swear that I won't ever do anything to make her cry. She's my best friend," Haku said to Anko, looking straight at her. "Good. Then welcome to the family," Yuugao said as she came up to sit next to Anko. Meanwhile in Konoha, Sarutobi was reviewing the information that he had received from Yuugao. He wasn't surprised to hear that Gato had once more betrayed the missing nin he had hired before. The man was a disgrace, and Sarutobi couldn't wait to see the man when he heard how his organization was destroyed under his very nose. Thanks to the reports of Yuugao, he had been able to map most of Gato's empire, and he and Daimyo had decided to deal with him as soon as possible. Now that Sarutobi knew that by the end of next week Gato would be in Wave to witness the destruction of the bridge, he quickly contacted the Daimyo and formed a strategy. The daimyo and his forces would take on the middlemen and buyers while Anbu would deal with the stronger and bigger places. They would coordinate the attacks, making it so that by the end of the day Gato would be nothing more than a bad memory. The Sandaime wrote his instructions into a scroll and ordered Yuugao and her team to capture Gato alive so that he could be questioned for any information they might have missed. The fact that Ibiki would be the one interrogating Gato made Sarutobi even grin more. Ibiki had his ways to make someone talk, and if Gato was just as cowardly as the Sandaime thought he was, he would be spilling his guts after only 10 minutes of being in Ibiki's care. That would teach the man that crime always comes back to bite you no matter who you are or how much money you have. He called Chunin and ordered him to tie the scroll to a messenger bird and went to bed after a hard day of paperwork. Kakashi and Kurenai were discussing the plan for Gato's attack later that week. Now that they knew that Gato had betrayed Zabuza and his companion, they were a bit more at ease, since thugs and bandits were not really a problem for 2 Junin and 6 Genin. Kakashi guessed that Gato would definitely bring enough manpower, but that wasn't too much of a problem. They figured that once the mercenaries saw how strong Shinobi were and how quickly their comrades fell, most of them would retreat fearing for their lives. I think we should post a guard here to protect Tezuna's family, Kurenai said, thinking loudly. I wouldn't be surprised if scum like Gato would attack them just to deal a blow to Tezuna. Not a bad idea, Kakashi agreed. Who should we ask to stay behind? I know for sure that Sasuke will refuse and Sakura will go where Sasuke goes. Kiba won't accept it either, and I don't want to leave Hinata alone. You never know. Kurenai nodded. I think Shino is the best for the job. He's calm, collected and the strongest. He might be stronger than Sasuke. Stronger than Sasuke? Huh. Kakashi agreed with her choice. He'll do a great job. I have no doubt of that. I'll ask him tonight. Kurenai nodded. Has each member of your team had their first kill? Yes, though only Sasuke seems to have dealt with that issue completely. Kakashi sighed. Sakura and Tsuyoshi still haven't recovered in my opinion. How about your team? Kiba and Shino have no problem with killing, though they fiercely dislike doing so. Kurenai admitted. Hinata is very reluctant to kill opponents, though she has been making some great progress over the past few months. She's a nice girl. A bit shy though. Kakashi said. Yeah, though she has changed for the better after I had put her under a genjutsu that showed her what could happen if she didn't take training and fighting seriously. Kurenai smiled. Genjutsu. What kind of genjutsu? Kakashi asked if I was interested. Maybe I could use it to motivate Sakura a bit more. It was Naruko who gave me the idea. Kurenai explained. She said that if Hinata was afraid to spar or fight, then maybe she needed to see what could happen to Shino, Kiba and me during a mission. I thought about it, and after trying everything else to help her, I used it. The genjutsu showed her not giving her all during a fight, and as a result the three of us got captured and killed by the enemy while she was taken prisoner. That's kind of harsh, isn't it? Kakashi said, surprised that Kurenai would use such methods. It is. Kurenai agreed. But it worked perfectly. She was mad at me for about 2 days before she came to see me asking for help to get stronger and better. Ever since that day she has been training harder than ever before. After that, Kurenai went to see Shino and asked if he would accept to stay here on the day of the fight to protect Tezuna's family. Shino didn't have any objection and nodded his agreement. Kurenai thanked him and promised him that she would make it up to him. Shino didn't really care one way or the other. It was an order from his sensei, and to refuse would not only be disrespectful but also illogical, as he knew that the threat to Tezuna's family was real enough. Haku was watching Naruko sleep early in the morning. She had been up for almost half an hour and she spent it by staring at the girl currently sleeping beside her. She remembered what Anko and Yugo had told her the night before, and she still had a hard time believing that a wonderful girl like Naruko didn't have any friends in her village. Haku's hand gently took a lock of hair that hung in front of Naruko's eyes and tucked it after her ear, careful not to wake her. She vowed once more that, if she was permitted to live in Konoha, she would do anything in her power to make Naruko happy, just like Anko and Yugo had promised as well. She smiled as Naruko's eyes slowly opened and took in her surroundings. "Good morning, Naru-chan." Haku smiled. "Did you sleep well?" "I slept great, thanks," Naruko said after letting a yawn escape. "How are you feeling? Does your leg still hurt as much?" "I'm fine. Anko-san used her jutsu once more last night," Haku said, nodding. "I think that in a few days I might be able to move around." "That's great," Naruko said happily. "Naru-chan, can I ask you a question?" Haku asked carefully. "You sure? What do you want to know?" Naruko said, surprised. "I want to know the real Naruko," Haku said. "I mean, when we talked we kind of told lies about ourselves. I want to know you, the real you." "Oh, okay, I guess that's fine." Naruko nodded as well. "But on one condition. After I'm done you tell me your story, deal?" "Deal." Haku nodded, smiling brightly. "Well, what exactly do you want to know?" Naruko asked. "Anko-san told me that you didn't have many friends in Konoha," Haku said. "Why is that?" "She told me a little about it, but she said the rest wasn't her story to tell." "It's true that I don't have any friends my age back in Konoha." Naruko sighed. "There are several reasons for that, but some are a secret, so I can't tell you until I get permission from Ji-chan." "Ji-chan is the Hokage, right?" Haku asked. "You must be close with him to call him that." "Oh yeah, Ji-chan and I are very close. In fact, he's about the only man I truly trust." Naruko smiled when she thought about the old man. "He's really nice, and when you know him, he's a real softie. Don't get me wrong, he can be pretty scary when he's mad, but with me he's always been kind and gentle. He gave me my own place after I left the orphanage when I turned 7. Even before then he always came to check on me and protected me from people who wished me harm." "Why would people wish you harm?" Haku asked, surprised. "That's part of the secret, so I can't tell," Naruko said, hoping her friend wouldn't get mad, but when Haku smiled at her, Naruko's fears melted as snow on a hot summer day. "Anyway, other than Ji-chan there's Ayame Ni-chan and her father who have a ramen stand where you'll get the best ramen in the whole world. I'll take you there once we're in Konoha. Those are the people I truly trust in Konoha outside Anko Ni-chan and Yuugao Ni-chan." "How did you meet Anko-san and Yuugao-san?" Haku was interested in learning more. "Well, Yuugao Ni-chan was my personal guard," Naruko said. "She has protected me since I left the orphanage. Although at that time I knew her as Neko-chan, as she was an Anbu. She was my role model and I always wanted to become just like her. When I graduated from the academy, Yuugao Ni-chan became my sensei and she invited me to live with her and Anko Ni-chan so we could become a family. They're the best sisters I could ever have hoped for and I love them very much," Naruko said, looking at where Anko and Yugo were still sleeping. "Anko-san told me that the girls in your class didn't like you." "Why was that?" Haku asked. "Oh, that's easy. Those girls were nothing more than fangirls, all chasing Uchiha Sasuke, the #1 shinobi of our class." Naruko snorted. "When I told them that I disliked boys, they just labeled me as a weirdo and ignored me. They didn't understand why I wasn't interested in Sasuke, and frankly I never understood why they were interested in him in the first place." Quote, "Sounds pretty stupid to me." Haku nodded. "I mean, what's so special about the boy?" "Oh, I guess it was because he's the last of the Uchiha clan and he's strong and talented." Naruko shrugged. "In the end I didn't really care one way or the other. They left me in peace most of the time and that was fine with me. But why didn't you become friends with the boys in your class? Haku asked and saw Naruko flinch slightly. I'm sorry, you don't have to answer that if you don't want to. She quickly added. No, it's okay. Naruko assured her. When I said that Ji-chan is the only man I trust, I meant that quite literally. He's the only one that's allowed to hug me or touch me. You see, a few weeks after I started at the academy, I went out to do some shopping and a drunken man attacked me. Haku gasped upon hearing that. I was about 10 years old and he knocked me out with a bottle before dragging me to a dark alley. Haku saw that Naruko had trouble continuing and she gently took Naruko's hand in hers and intertwined her fingers with Naruko's. Luckily, Yuugao Kunoichi saved me before he could do anything, but ever since I have a fierce distrust of men. After that I told the boys of my class to leave me alone or suffer the consequences. I'm sorry, Naru-chan. Haku said softly. I shouldn't have asked. No, it's okay. Naruko said, wiping a lone tear. You're my friend, so I don't mind telling you. Haku raised her hand and placed it on Naruko's cheek before she closed the distance between them and gave Naruko a gentle kiss on the lips. Naruko was shocked at first, but then she felt so right and she relaxed and enjoyed the feeling of Haku's lips on hers. After about half a minute, Haku removed her lips and Naruko immediately missed the feeling. She opened her eyes and looked at Haku with a bright red face. Haku too was blushing, but not as much as Naruko was, and she had a nice smile on her face. Oh, you two are so cute. A voice said, bringing them both out of trance. They turned to where the sound came from and saw Yugo and Anko sitting there looking at them. Anko Nichan, Yugo Nichan, I thought you two were still sleeping. Naruko said, embarrassed. Maybe you were enjoying that kiss too much to notice we've been awake for quite some time now. Yugo laughed as the two girls got even redder. Our little sister is growing up. Anko said, hugging Naruko, rubbing her cheek against Naruko's. So, how was it? Did you like it? Is Haku-chan a good kisser? Anko Nichan. Naruko whined loudly. Okay, Anko, leave them alone. Yugo laughed. We can tease them later on, but for now we need to get breakfast ready. Haku-chan, if you don't mind, I would like to hear your story as well. We need to get to know you as well, as it seems you'll be staying with us for a long time. Sure. No problem, Yugo-san. Haku said, blushing but still holding Naruko's hand. When Anko had finished making breakfast, the four of them all sat together and enjoyed the meal. Haku and Naruko were still embarrassed that the two women had seen the kiss they shared, and they desperately avoided looking at each other for the time being. Luckily, neither Anko nor Yugo had commented on the fact that until they started eating, Haku and Naruko were still holding hands. Naruko doubted that they didn't notice, but she was grateful that they didn't tease them about it. She knew, however, that Anko wasn't done with teasing and embarrassing them about the kiss. When they finished breakfast, Yugo asked Haku to tell them about her. Well, I was born in a small village in Mizu no Kuni, not too far from Kurigakure. Haku started. I lived with my parents in a small house, and while we didn't have much, we were very happy. My parents loved me and I loved them, even though life was sometimes difficult. Unfortunately, a civil war had broken out several years before, and the Mizukage was a man with deep grudges and hatred for people with a Kekkei Genkei. Why did he hate them? Naruko asked her. Well, I don't really know the details, but Zabuza-sama told me that most of the rebels that fought against the Mizukage had a Kekkei Genkei. Haku answered. After the war was over, the Mizukage ordered the death of everyone with a Kekkei Genkei. A lot of people got killed and many hid and tried to get away by pretending not to have one. Haku continued. However, every once in a while people get discovered and are killed on the spot. My mother was one of those people with a Kekkei Genkei. So you have one as well. Yugo asked. Yes, I have a Kekkei Genkai that allows me to use Hyouten ninjutsu. Haku nodded and she showed by doing some hand seals and a slab of ice formed in front of them. The three Konoha Kunoichi were very impressed but didn't comment on it as they noticed Haku's pained expression. When my father found out that my mother had this Kekkei Genkai, he went berserk. He attacked her and my mother didn't defend herself against him. No doubt she loved him too much. Anko said softly. Maybe, but when he turned on me as well, I activated my Kekkei Genkai and accidentally killed my own father. Haku said tears were freely falling from her eyes and Naruko grabbed her in a hug. Haku wrapped her arms around Naruko and cried. When she could cry no more, she thanked Naruko and continued. After that I left the village and wandered around until Zabuza-sama found me. He was leaving Kurigakure as he didn't agree with how things were at the time. He had a use for me and not wanting to be alone anymore, I followed him. So he taught you how to be a shinobi? Yugo said, nodding. Yes, I was his tool and weapon. Haku answered. It might sound awful, but to me it was the greatest feeling. I knew that someone needed me, that I wasn't unwanted, and I pledged myself to him. Ever since the day he took me in, we wandered around and got hired for some odd jobs. We weren't supposed to be traveling so long. Zabuza-sama wanted to return to Kiri and become the ruler. Unfortunately, we always had to deal with hunter nins who were after Zabuza-sama's bounty. And then you got hired by Gato. Anko finished. Yes, and now Zabuza-sama is dead and I'm alone again. Haku said, sobbing before flinging herself into Naruko's arms. It's okay, Haku-chan. Naruko said, holding her friend. You're not alone. I'm here and so are Yugo-ni-chan and Anko-ni-chan. You're my friend and part of my family now, so you'll never be alone again, I swear. Really? Haku said silently. Naruko-chan is right. Yugo said while getting up. I admit that I wasn't sure about you joining us, but I am now. Haku-chan, you're now part of our family and we take care of our own. From this moment on, you're our little sister as well. Damn right, you are. Anko added, smiling. Thank you, Anko-san. Yugo-san. Haku said with a small smile. You can call us Ni-chan just like Naruko does. Anko said, giving the girl a hug. Just then the messenger bird that Sandame had requested arrived with his instructions and Yugo read it out loud so that her companions could hear it as well. When she read the part that Gato was to be captured alive, Naruko and Haku protested, but Anko told them that if Gato was needed alive it only meant that he was going to be questioned. She then explained that Gato would suffer far more by keeping him alive than giving him a quick death. Trust me, Ibiki has his ways to make people talk. Anko smirked. And that way he'll know that everything he ever worked for is gone. Anko is right. Yugo agreed. Death is too good for a man like Gato. It's better to let him know that everything he held dear was taken from him. Haku thought about it for a bit and eventually agreed not to kill Gato on the spot. Knowing that the man would pay for his crimes was enough, and she didn't want to lose her friend by going against orders from her possible future leader. After that, Anko left to monitor Gato once more while Yugo went to inform Kakashi and Kurenai that Gato was to be captured alive. The day of the final battle had finally come. Anko and Yugo had continued spying on Gato and had counted the number of mercenaries that the man had hired to be around several dozen. They weren't too worried as Kakashi and Kurenai were Junin and were more than strong enough to deal with thugs like that. Still, they would be there to lend a hand if necessary, and this was why they were heading towards the bridge right now. Haku's leg hadn't completely healed, which was expected, but she was able to walk around with crutches that Naruko had made a few days ago. She had discarded her former outfit and now wore a pair of Naruko's spare clothes. She and Naruko wore the exact same outfit, and Yugo had to admit that Haku looked just as impressive as Naruko while wearing those clothes. Haku liked the outfit immediately as it showed that she meant business and it made her feel part of the group. Okay, remember that our main objective is to capture Gato. Yuugao said once more. We will not engage into battle unless Team 7 and 8 are in trouble. Once they defeat most of the mercenaries, we'll make our move. The others nodded and took their positions just past the bridge, hiding in the trees that provided them with a clear view of the soon-to-be battlefield. Half an hour later they saw Team 7 and 8 arrived and the genin seemed to be a bit nervous but otherwise fine. Kakashi and Kurenai sensed their backup sitting in the tree and gave a subtle nod. The workers arrived soon after and started working on the final part of the bridge. Tazuna, who didn't know that today was the day that Gato would attack, ordered the men around and helped in the construction while the Konoha shinobi watched and waited. For several hours things were very calm and the work went very well. Tazuna was looking over some blueprints when all of a sudden Kakashi and Kurenai ordered their genin to set up a perimeter and guard the workers. Tazuna was about to ask what was going on when a boat approached the bridge and soon dozens of men climbed up. Lastly Gato appeared and Tazuna gritted his teeth at seeing the man that killed his son-in-law. Gato, what are you doing here? Tazuna yelled out. Magnificent work you've done here. Gato said, ignoring Tazuna's question. Really impressive. Too bad I can't allow this bridge to exist. You see, it would harm my business and that's something I can't allow. You son of a. Tazuna said, cursing. You dare come here after almost destroying us and now you want to take away our last hope. Hope? This bridge. Gato laughed loudly. My dear man, you should have known that you can't win against me. While you might have a few shinobi to protect you, I have greatly outnumbered them and they will fall just like everyone else in this pathetic country. I wouldn't be too sure about that. Kakashi said, asking Tazuna to get behind the genin so that they could protect them. You made a serious miscalculation by betraying Zabuza and his companion. Those two were weak. Gato snorted. Ah, but that's where you're wrong. Kakashi chuckled. Zabuza was far from weak. In fact, he almost defeated us and now that he's gone you don't stand a chance against us. Have you looked around, idiot? Gato laughed. You're outnumbered at least 5-1 and you say we don't stand a chance. Exactly. Kakashi nodded. I admit that we would have been in trouble if you had let us fight Zabuza first. We would have been tired, perhaps injured, making us easy prey. But since that's not the case, we can fight at the fullest of our capacities. Be that as it may, there's only 2 of you and a bunch of children. Gato said angrily. True, they're young but each of them is one of the strongest of their generation and more than enough to defeat a group of thugs. Kakashi said before he nodded to Kurenai. Sakura, Hinata, the 2 of you protect the workers and stop anyone that might pass us from entering the village. Kurenai ordered. Sasuke, Kiba and Tsuyoshi, the 3 of you are with us. Attack, kill them all. Gato roared. The 1who brings me the bridge Bidler's head will never need money again. From the trees the 4 Kunoichi saw how the battle erupted. If you could call it a battle, Kakashi and Kurenai took out most of the mercenaries with ease while the 3 genin fought several thugs as well. Naruko and Haku weren't really impressed with the skills the genin showed as they watched them fight. Oh sure, they used some cool techniques and jutsu, but it was kind of let down that they needed to retort to using jutsu to fight them. Naruko looked over at Sakura who was shouting out encouragement for the Uchiha while Hinata was focused on the battle in case one of the thugs made it past her sensei and teammate. Look at her, cheering on her crush. Anko snorted. Really, is that all she thinks about? Doesn't she realize that this is a mission and not some sporting event? Heads up, it's almost our turn. Yuugao said. The others looked at the bridge and saw that most of the thugs and mercenaries were already defeated. Gato, who was shocked at seeing his army decimated by the Konoha shinobi, cursed his luck. Maybe he should have waited to kill off Zabuza like that masked shinobi had said. He was certain that his army would be able to defeat any shinobi that the bridge builder had hired, but now he was proven otherwise. When the last of his men fell down on the hard surface of the bridge, he knew that things had just gotten worse. Don't come any closer. Gato was terrified as the Konoha shinobi approached him. Sasuke just smirked and was about to move when Kakashi put his arm in front of him. No, Sasuke. Gato isn't ours to deal with, Kakashi said, making Sasuke frown. He was about to ask what he meant when 4 people appeared in front of them. He didn't recognize 3 of them, but he did recognize the blonde that used to be in his class. What are they doing here? Sasuke and Kiba asked their sensei. We're here to capture Gato, Yuugao said without turning around. What? That's not fair. We defeated them, Kiba yelled out. Kiba, stand down, Kurenai ordered. Yuugao and her team have been assigned this mission by the Hokage himself. But, Kiba started. You should listen to your sensei, Anko said, turning around grinning wickedly. Besides, we have been on this mission for over a month. Gato, you're finished, Yuugao said to him. As we speak, the daimyo's forces and Konoha's Anbu are destroying your entire operation. By tonight, all your companies and illegal activities will be put to a stop. What? That's impossible, Gato stammered. Why you can't do this to me? Yuugao just moved her hand and Naruko shot forward and appeared behind Gato, hitting him in the back of his head with the hilt of her tanto. Gato lost consciousness and crashed into the ground. Anko walked over and put a restraining seal on him, which would assure them that he stayed quiet until they reached Konoha. Once that was done, Anko hoisted him over her shoulder and nodded. Thanks for your help, Team 7 and 8. Yuugao smiled at Kakashi and the rest. I'm glad to see that you didn't need our help. We'll see you back in Konoha. And with that, the 4 Kunoichi disappeared. Hey, what did she mean with, didn't need our help? Kiba said, irritated. They were watching over our fight and would have helped us when needed. Kurenai explained. They were ordered as our backup by the Hokage. The genin weren't very glad to hear that, and they protested loudly that they were strong enough to deal with a few thugs without having to need backup. Kakashi agreed with them, saying that yes, they were strong enough to fight thugs and bandits, but that if Gato had been smart enough to keep Zabuza alive or hire some new missing nin, then they would have been in trouble. He also told them that Yuugao and her team knew that they wouldn't have any trouble fighting as they didn't interfere during the battle. Once Wave knew that Gato was defeated, a huge party erupted in the village and it seemed that the depressing mood had vanished. After the parties, Tazuna had more than enough workers to help finish the bridge, and he told Kakashi and Kurenai that they would be allowed to leave in a few days.